The dark side has won, ladies and gentlemen. The power that influenced the world. I ponder sometime. What are we doing to the kids in the world around us, right? We believe in this notion that if you know do learn in like uh, materials in school, you get ahead in life, right? And do we have this notion that we do love school? Well, there is good and bad to school. I mean, we're still learning our whole life, so I mean, there are people who stop learning and people never pick up a book again, which I um, sadly it influence how what they're going to take action on. Your belief system and your ideas about the world. It will dictate your action. It will dictate how you behave, whether you're going to do a certain thing or not. It's how you live within the scope of range. And I come to realize a lot of people have misinformation about the subject about school, right? Now, a lot of people love to imagine that school it's everything. School is this, school is that, and you hear everywhere. You hear in high school where kids be like school, um, college, where they're going to be, or when they were kids, like yeah, school is because their parents told them that they it's how they become successful. But I believe school is evil. I believe that. Well, the teacher aren't evil. The people aren't evil. It's just the idea, the way that we when we school could have school play a big part of our life, whether it's we become successful or not. But if for the love of God's sake, I mean, like, if school was so it's our whole life we go through the system, right? I call it the matrix. If you ever watched the movie The Matrix, it's they live in the dream world where they're stuck, where everybody obey the system, and they if they get out of uh the system, the system thing, stuff like that. You seen the movie? I mean, I have watched it, and I have explained in my other video about the Matrix. And yeah, so basically, in real life, in real life is the Matrix. That's why you keep hearing people say the Matrix. I come to realize the Matrix is where people obey. They don't get out of if they get out of line, or they disobey the teacher, the teacher will yell at them. Or you know people, school deal with the left hemisphere of the brain logic, and they destroy the right hemisphere. I believe that both of hemispheres are important. I mean, without, it's like people want to go to the extreme where they want logic to be important instead of not imagination. And then there's imagination where they push aside logic, or knowledge is not important. But I believe that in order to uh, function in this world, we need both innovations, ideas, reorganize, whatever. But the idea that behind this system that we gather, it's based upon school was meant to um, get you a degree which will influence you to go work for the boss, which boss is the rich people. And a lot of people hate rich people, and they're working for them. So the whole history is, if you look behind the history of, if you read the whole insidious notion that, now most people think rich people are evil. No, there are rich people who are good. That there are all type of people that you see. The reason why I bring this up, because I have Rich Dad Conspiracy of the Rich. I love this book. I love his book. I love everything about his book, even though it's the same. but it's sometimes it remind you of the information. You need the information to be reinforced again and again. And Robert Kiyosaki helped me along my journey about understanding the concept of money and how money is being used and influence. Right now in day and age, money is just like a digital numbers in the bank system, right? And you carry bills and credit cards and stuff like that. But money, it's just this thing, currency, right? Because if it doesn't move, it doesn't have value, right? Now I'm gonna read you this thing, very quite interesting to me, that the purpose of foundation. The General Education Board was used the power of money not to raise the level of education in America, as was widely believed at the time, but to influence the direction of that education. The object was to use the classroom to teach attitudes that encourage people to be passive and submissive to their rulers. The goal was and to create citizens who were educated enough for productive work under supervision, but not enough to question authority or to seek rise above their class. True education was to be restricted to the sons and daughters of the elite. For the rest, it would be better to produce skills worker with no particular aspiration other to enjoy life. G. Edward Griffin in The Creature from Jekyll Island. And here we go. This profoundly. So many of us go on to work for new plantation, the big corporation of the world, the military or the government. We go to school to get a good job. We're taught to work for the rich, shop at the store of the rich, borrow money from the rich, from the bank of the rich, invest in the business of the rich via mutual funds in our retirement plan, but not how to be rich. Many people do not like hearing they're taught by our school system to be caught in the web. They call it the rat race. The web of conspiracy of the rich. People do not like it to hear that the rich have manipulated our system of education, hijacking the educational system. One of the greatest sins of our current educational system is that it does not teach you about money. Rather, it teaches you how to be good employee and to know your station in life. Some would say this is by design. Keep in mind that the General Education Board was founded in 1903 by the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the most powerful and wealthiest foundation of the time. What we see here is an attitude that dates back over 100 years, one of the elite rich of the United States, even the world seemingly also striving an education curriculum to meet their needs and not necessarily the needs of the student. This is important today because although these attitudes are over a century old, they have not gone away and they are a driving force beyond your education. My education and the education of your children and their driving force behind the suppression of financial education even today. You do not need to know about money when you're destined to simply be a cog in someone else's money machine or worker on someone else's plantation. Person system, a system designed to create good employees and soldiers, people who blindly follow orders, waiting to be told what to do, including what to do with their money. As Mr. Ghetto said to me recently, the school system was not designed to teach children to think for themselves, nor was it developed to just support the present day notion that we can be free. In actuality, our current school system is based upon a Persian model that was developed to do just the opposite, to teach children to obey orders and do as they told. Compliance and obedient students become employees who are content to work for the rich or become soldiers who sacrifice their life to protect the wealth of the rich. The lack of financial education in our school has resulted in many millions of people who are willing to to let the government take more control over their lives because we do not have enough financial intelligence to solve our own financial problems. We expect the government to do it for us. In the process, we surrender our freedom and give the government more and more control over our lives and money. Every time the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury bail out a bank, we're not helping the people. We're protecting the rich, and a bailout is welfare for the rich. With each bailout, we surrender more of our financial freedom, and our share of public debt grows and grows. Big government taking over our banks and um, solving our personal financial problems through government programs such as Social Security and Medicare, and a form of socialism. I believe that socialism make people work and keep them weak. Again, once the Federal Reserve was allowed to print money and increase the national debt, taxes, inflation, and retirement had to rise. Saying another way, weakening people financially via taxes, debt, and inflation, and retirement allows for a government greater consolidation of power. In 2009, the percentage of Americans who own their homes is dropping. Mortgage foreclosures are at time high. The number of middle class families is dropping. Saving accounts are smaller if they exist at all. Finally, death is greater. The number of people officially below the poverty line is rising. The number of people who are working beyond the age of 65 is increasing. Bankruptcy is going through the roof, and many Americans do not have enough money to retire. But it's not just a U.S. phenomenon. It's a worldwide personal financial crisis. The fact remains that most people leave school without knowledge about money, tax, death, and inflation, and retirement of these forces affect our lives or their lives. And we're going to talk about. Here we go. Okay, here we go. In the big picture of personal finance, there are three financial forces that cause most people to work hard and yet struggle financially. There are taxes, debt, inflation, and retirement. Not only do we pay income tax, but also sales tax, gasoline tax, real estate tax, and so forth. More important to who do our tax dollars go and what cost. And then take a moment to think about how much inflation affect your life. You may recall that not too long ago, people began flipping houses because prices were going up so rapidly. During that same period, the prices of gasoline, a college education, food, clothes, and more were climbing steadily, but income wasn't. Many people did not save because it was smarter to spend today rather than pay tomorrow. It was inflation in action. Taxes. America was relatively tax-free in the early days. In 1862, the first income tax was levied to pay for the Civil War. In 1895, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that an income tax was unconstitutional. In 1913, however, the same year the federal system was created. The 16th Amendment was passed, making an income tax permanent. The reason for the reinstatement of the income tax was to capitalize the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve. Now the rich could put their hands in our pocket via tax permanent. That the Federal Reserve System gave politicians the power to borrow money rather than raise tax. That, however, is a double-edged sword that results in either high taxes or inflation. The U.S. government create money rather than raising taxes, but by using U.S. bond IOU from taxpayer of the country and eventually have to be paid for with higher taxes or by printing more money which create inflation. Inflation, which I don't like. People, don't understand inflation. They think they do, and because they put money in the bank and oh my god, they like have you seen the saving like the percentage if you put in the saving account? It's like 0.1. It's ridiculous. That why inflation is often called this is caused by the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury borrowing money or printing money to pay the government bills. That's why inflation is often called the slant tax. Inflation make the rich richer, but it make the cost of living more expensive for the poor and middle class. This is because those who print money receive the most benefit. They can purchase goods and services they desire with new money before it dilutes the existing money pool. They reap all the benefits and numb the consequence, all the while poor and the middle class watches their buck get stretched and thinner. And they talk about retirement plan. And I you know some teachers have don't understand about the money, how they I remember there was one of my brother friend, he told me about his teacher told him misinformation about the government. The gov like the she there's a reason why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because the rich people develop the skills and the knowledge to to invest in and to grow their wealth, while the poor they spend on stupid stuff and they invest in the wrong things, and they buy they make and then they spend more than they make, right? And profoundly, profoundly, we never learn anything about money, which it influences our whole life, right? We use money everywhere, every day, every single day, right? For food, whatever, you know, put money in the gas, car, every day, and yet we were never taught about money. Why is that? Why do we run away this subject about money? Money is important to learn, and for the love of God, people tell you just to save, but and the whole understanding is this: why is it that we work for money, but we were never taught about money because we're working for money our whole life in a job? That's terrible. Changing the rules of money. In 1971, President Richard Nixon changed the rules of money. Without the approval of Congress, he severed the U.S. dollar's relationship with the gold. He made this unilateral decision during a quietly held two-day meeting on uh, Minute Island in Maine, without consulting his State Department or international monetary system. President Nixon changed the rules because foreign countries being paid in the US dollars grew subsequently. When the US Treasury was printing more and more money to cover over debt, they began um, exchanging the dollars directly for gold in earnest, depleting most of the US gold reserve. The vault was being emptied because the government was importing more than it was exporting. And because of the costly Vietnam War, as our economy grew, we were also importing more and more oil. Nixon created a way for the United States to print it was way out of debt. It's a great book on understanding about our educational system. Was basically you were told that you're gonna be a slave to the system and that you cannot think. I remember Richard Branson. I was watching a talk that he gave on YouTube, and he was talking about rules are meant to be broken. He didn't, in his opinion, not break the law, but break the rule. Um, Anytime you go outside and step outside of the boundary of what is right, what is true, society tells you it's wrong. You're crazy. You're stupid. What the heck are you talking about? And these people don't understand anything because they were influenced by the teachers, the system, the school, the peers, saying that money is evil. But they were like, it's funny how like they said money is evil, and they said money is important, but they're working the money their whole life, and they're working away. Why? So you should get that book. I like it. I really, because there's a conspiracy. Shh, don't tell me. Subscribe to my channel, like my video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.